Welcome back to A Fresh Story, the podcast where we have conversations about brave decisions to start over again. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Olivia, and we're so glad you're here today. Hello, sissy. How are you?
I am good. I'm hungry.
I'm so hungry.
We shouldn't record these before lunch.
I didn't eat my yogurt today, and I just was like,
did you not eat breakfast?
I didn't eat breakfast. The ADD stuff is kicking in. I'm just forgetting to eat a lot of the time.
Yeah, you need to be better about eating because you're a breakfast, lunch, and dinner lady.
I'm a 3-meal person.
I'm a 1 to 2 meal a day person.
Yeah.
And that makes
really
me,
hungry.
it's tough. It's tough because I have to remember to remind you to feed yourself.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm not an adult.
No, you're very much an adult, but you live in a community, and community care is self-care.
Thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So today's guest, we were
community care is self-care.
Excited about
directly into Alex Frankel.
Yeah. Alex Frankel, I think I discovered him on TikTok a while back, and I just fell in love with his personality, fell in love with his mission, what he was doing, and we reached out to him to see if he would come on the show. And Jenny and I always say that we can tell how the conversation is going to go before the person, as soon as they sign on to Zoom, right? Yeah. And as soon as he signed on to Zoom, we were like, we love you. Yeah. We
invited him out to Long Island to come see us in person.
We love this guy. Not only is his personality magnetic and beautiful and huge and wonderful, but he is probably one of the most intelligent people that we've ever talked to. He just took us down so many fantastic rabbit holes during this conversation. And it was one of the longest conversations I think we've had. It was a nighttime one.
We could have kept talking all night.
And he just had so many fantastic stories. So he is the founder of the Hot Fat Guy Club. He is a Wilhelmina model, right?
Yep.
And
I believe their first plus size male model, one of them,
yeah. And he is such
an opera singer,
and
a chess player,
a writer, an actor. I mean, all of these things.
And a dog dad too, which I think is really important.
A partner. And so we just had this amazing, funny, energetic conversation with him about life, about finding yourself, about bullying, about
about the importance of community and the importance of this community that he is building and what he wants to do with it. I think that when Olivia and I find other founders that are sort of coming at the same issue of isolation and shame, but they're coming at it from another direction, it's so exciting because it feels like we all get to meet in the middle. We all collect our people that are sort of on our path, and we get to meet in the middle and just cover our people in big hugs and love. And
it's the Humans Changing the World Club. That's what it is.
It is. And I was surprised. I was genuinely surprised to find out that he is not a Leo, because he's got such strong Leo energy, and the hair and the Alex, the lion hair is his thing.
Yeah.
And he was just such a phenomenal person. I think, so often when we record this podcast, we get to meet people that we're like, well, you're part of our world now. Yeah. And he definitely is.
Yeah, we adore him. So enjoy the conversation with Alex Frankel. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to A Fresh Story so we can keep telling fresh start stories. Today we have Alex here. He is the CEO of the Hot Fat Guy Club, which is one of my favorite clubs. Let's just be honest. And we're so excited. I've been following him on TikTok. I'm sure many of you have for a long time. And he has done what we love to do over here at Fresh Starts, which is inspire a movement of empowerment. And we're all about that. So Alex, we're thrilled you're here today.
Thanks for having me. Nothing better than spending a Thursday night talking to you two.
Well, we're so excited.
We're all about it. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. I'm really excited to talk with you. I'm kind of going through a fresh start phase right now in a number of different ways, which is interesting. The long version of the super duper short version of a super duper long story is I train as an opera singer. I am now all of a sudden a professional opera singer again. But throughout the process of that whole thing, opera, despite the majority of the famous people that you know of off the top of your head, in opera being large fat people, and the whole stereotype of it's not over till the fat lady sings, opera is actually a hugely fat phobic industry. And the amount of times I was told, especially when I was much bigger, when I was younger and in school and everything in my 20s, lose 150 pounds and you can have a career. So I lost 170 pounds. And then I still sort of had a career, right? It was one of those things where it didn't actually met the aesthetic of what looks good on stage is more important than the actual skill level, talent, whatever. And then in the process of retooling some things after a couple of really bad experiences with some large opera companies in 2017, I was starting to come back into the industry and had booked out an entire year of performing starting in
2020. Of course. Our favorite year.
Our favorite year. In fact, and literally that rehearsal process was supposed to start, what's today's date? The 16th?
Yeah.
Yesterday, 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was a last second edition of hey, we're gonna hire you right now and you have to learn this entire opera in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Amongst a million other things. So there was a huge identity crisis that came along with that, because for so long everything was built around being an opera singer. But I got ahead of myself briefly, because in 2017, when I took that break from actively pursuing working with major opera companies and was primarily doing more concert work and random shit like that, that was when the big and tall modeling industry first started to really begin. And you were starting to see a lot more body well, not a lot more, but a lot more, because there was one person, right? It was 100% more than there was.
Yeah.
And I had done a photo shoot in San Francisco with a friend of mine who is a classical musician as well and a photographer. And I had been using the same headshot since I was 17 years old. And I finally hit puberty at 24 and could grow fucking facial hair. And
you have great facial hair.
Thank you. Well, when I don't pick at it. Yeah. Thank you. It's kind of especially when it first started growing, it was like a fun house of mirrors, because nothing grew down the middle, so I had to kind of cover it up. It was like a
circus star.
Exactly. It was like a comb over, but on the opposite side of your head kind of thing.
Comb under.
Yeah. And funny story, one of those really bad experiences that I had with an opera company involved doing a show and went through a breakup in the middle of this show, and I was singing the lead in this opera where I was playing a German soldier in World War I. And this was the beginning of my Jon Snow Viking era, and they were like, all right, I can tell you love your hair too much, we're gonna put you in a wig and not make you cut your hair, but the beard's gotta go. And I was like, no. So that was a rotten start, because they made me shave my fucking beard off and I look like a thumb without facial hair. And one of my friends in the cast, I sent a picture of it to the group chat we had, and I was like, I look like a fucking thumb. And he goes, but thumbs are so important.
That's a supportive friend.
A really good point.
Yeah. And so then I did this photo shoot, and it totally upended my perception of myself, and it took the mental image that I had been holding on to for a really long time, which is imagine Jabba the Hutt and a Gumby that's been left out in Arizona in July on the street.
Yeah.
With Danny DeVito as the penguin getting smushed through a hydraulic press.
That is very specific, Alex.
Yeah. So that was I made sounds of a dolphin getting skinned by a goat when I saw some of these photos for the first time. And it was the first moment of whoa, this is everything I've ever told myself is a lie kind of thing. And that was in December 2015. Zach Miko and IMG announced their Brawn division, their first big and tall division, in February of 2016. And Jiang, the photographer, and I had built a very good friendship to this point. And he was like, you should try modeling. And I was like, nobody wants to do that. And then Zach Miko gets signed, and I'm like, I look like the Diet Coke version of him. But everybody likes Diet Coke better.
Yeah.
Just the taste.
Found Diet Coke.
It's so much better. Diet Coke runs the world, but
it's the elixir.
I know. Coca-Cola, horrible company, but Diet Coke runs the world. So that flipped everything upside down for me, and I was like, okay, I'll pursue the modeling thing, and then all of a sudden it just took off. And fast forward now to 2023, and I'm signed with Wilhelmina, second largest modeling agency in the world.
Yeah, casual.
I know, right? It still is a weird thing every time. I'm like so close with my agents too. Like I had them and their kids over the summer for a barbecue, but it was too fucking hot to actually hang out on the roof, so we're all like sitting around my apartment. It was really funny.
I love that.
And I've built a really good relationship with that team, and it's still mind-boggling that the fashion industry was more accepting and to a point of my fat ass than the opera world was, considering what the stereotype of the opera world was. I mean, Pavarotti, exhibit A, and the only fucking exhibit that you need. So that was mind-boggling. And then 2020 happened, so I go through this whole identity crisis of who the fuck am I if I'm not an opera singer, blah 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 blah. The modeling world is non-existent. I gained a fuck ton of weight during COVID because I eat my feelings and smoke weed like a chimney, and I was not about to go through the end of the world sober. Absolutely fucking not.
No.
Yeah. So let's just slow it down for a second. What is your favorite munchies food to eat when you're stoned?
At the time, my go-to was, this is so hedonistic, the dusty Cheez-Its, the extra cheesy Cheez-Its.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the Target has the giant bag of the baking chocolate chip size bag of M&M's minis.
Yeah,
you take
I know
that
what you mean.
and you put it in the box.
I like your style.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, you can proceed with the story.
That's pretty brilliant, Alex.
So one of my chess students one time, this little fucking rich kid, lives in fucking Gramercy, and is worth more than any of us will ever be in our entire lifetime at 7 years old.
We know the type.
And I'm going back and forth with him about favorite foods, because I would always have some dumb question of the day to waste 10 minutes and also just get their mind going.
Yeah.
And so my go-tos would always be things like, if you could pick one superpower, would you rather fly or breathe underwater? And then the really fun part of that conversation is then getting into the pedantics of it with the adult in the room, because then the pressure question always comes up. But anyway, right.
I didn't even think of that. I was like, can you fly faster than you can swim? My thing is how can I get places the quickest?
Exactly.
So that's
exactly. So we have that conversation, and somehow we start talking about food, and the conversation of dipping French fries in a milkshake comes up, and the kid looks at me like I just skinned his cat.
Yeah, wow.
He's like, no, that's disgusting. And I'm like, trust me. And I taught his little sister, I was subbing this lesson for another tutor. And the next week I get a text from the other tutor, and she was like, so-and-so told me to tell you that you were right. And I was like, you're goddamn right, I was fucking right.
Sweet and salty, baby. Sweet
Exactly.
and salty.
I need to go back. We need to go back all the way here.
So many questions.
So many questions.
Yeah, I talk fast, sorry.
No,
you talk fast, and you're like, anyway, chess tutor.
I know. I have all the questions. Okay, where did you grow up, first of all?
Yes.
Just outside of San Francisco.
Okay, because you have very New York vibes about you.
My dad is an old angry Jew from the Bronx, and
there
my
you
mom,
okay.
yeah. My by old, I mean old. My dad's 91. He was born in
you got old dad.
1931. Oh yeah, so he lived through World War II era New York City.
Wow. He's like our grandmother's age.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So do you have older siblings?
Yeah, we'll get into that. That's
okay.
a whole fucking thing.
Do you want to come back and do 17 podcasts? Because we can get into the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
So you grew up in California.
Yeah.
And how did music? So I'm assuming you were into theater and music from an early age.
Yeah. So funny. Okay. So speaking of my siblings, I have 2 half siblings.
Yeah.
Okay. A consistent thread throughout my entire family for my entire life is hemp and cannabis.
Okay.
My dad quit smoking cigarettes cold turkey and instantly replaced the habit with smoking weed like a chimney. And it was really funny growing up. Our neighbor, I lived in a cul-de-sac, and our neighbor, catty cornered from our house, was an ex-Hell's Angel. who like literally went to prison on felony gun charges. This man was like my second father. He had a party when he got out of prison. It was the John Has Changed party, and he changed his name to John 2. And like I want to paint this picture to you. Okay, Please. This man is 6'4". He is ripped to shreds. He is covered in tattoos from head to toe, and he has 3 little Havanese foofy ass dogs with bows in their hair. And he's an old lady hairdresser in my hometown.
God bless.
Yeah.
I love
that. So
he
John,
needs a reality show.
John too.
Yeah. So they're like before prison and after prison, John, very different people, right? But my dad and John fucking hated each other. But then this was pre-prison John, but then all of a sudden they became super close after they realized they both smoked weed.
Okay.
And then the bonding. And so John had a stepson that was like my age, and we were really close. And so then we became really good friends. And John's house was just like the sanctuary. Where I could go and, you know, have emotions and be a real person.
Yeah.
So what was that? I forgot what we were talking
about. You were talking about your half siblings. You were talking about your into music.
My oldest, my 2 half brothers are like my mother's age.
Okay.
And they owned a hemp clothing store with Woody Harrelson in San Francisco when I was like 3. And it was the Frankel brothers hemp store, and they put my name on the deed. I didn't own anything. I didn't have share. I didn't have equity or anything, but it was Frankel brothers, so they put my name on the thing. It was really sweet, right?
That was kind. Yeah.
And the whole theater thing, like I was always into performing in theater, and I love attention and tell me I'm good. And
Are you a Leo?
And I'm a Scorpio, but my moon is in Leo.
Yeah, I knew there was Leo somewhere there.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of it. Tell me I'm good. So
me too. I'm a Leo too. I'm like, tell me I'm good.
Tell me I'm good, please. Yep. So I was just always into performing and doing stuff, and you know, I really wanted to be in a boy band. And when I was 4 years old, I think ACT, American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, did a Sam Shepard play called The Late Henry Moss. And The Late Henry Moss is about these 2 boys who are cleaning up their parents' house after either their mother or father died. They're both dead now. And the father is a raging alcoholic, abusive monster. And Woody Harrelson was in this play with Sean Penn and Cheech Marin in San Francisco. And my brother got us tickets because he was Woody's cannabis lawyer. And my parents took me when I was 4 years old. And it is one of my core memories. It's one of the first things I actually remember from my childhood. Is there is a scene when Henry Moss is absolutely, trigger warning, beating the shit out of his wife in the kitchen in that set. And that image is indelibly scarred into my brain forever. My parents had no fucking business taking me to this play at 4 years old. I can see the entire scene.
It was only a Sam Shepard play.
Right. So, but the funniest part of the story is, and this totally tracks with my entire personality for the rest of my life. We are who we are at birth.
Yes, we are.
100% agree.
Yes.
And we'll come back to that too, because I think the quicker we all accept the baseline of everyone's fucked up, the quicker we can have empathy for everybody. But I went backstage and apparently gave Sean fucking Penn, Oscar winner Sean Penn, acting notes when I was 4 years old.
That tracks, huh?
Yeah. So I'm sure he loved that.
He probably did. I mean, it was probably adorable.
I wonder what the notes were.
I don't remember. I don't know. I think I might have told him to smile more. Who knows?
But did that like inspire you? You were like, I want to be on stage.
That was a big part of it. And another big thing was like, because of David's proximity to Hollywood and to Woody and all that. And like, I was born in 91. I was obsessed with NSYNC and I wanted to be in a boy band.
Of course.
You know, I thought that David always gave me like, you know, he always made it seem like he could make something happen kind of thing. But so I always wanted to, it was something I was always drawn to. And then when I did theater for the first time and everyone was looking at me and I was better than everybody at it, that was also great.
Am I good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was always something that I stuck with. And then I started playing sports in high school and I stopped doing theater completely. And then my sophomore year, I was like, wait a minute, that was dumb. And then I got back. I was in like drama class and shit, but I was so focused on sports and like trying to be cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, to be the jock guy.
Yeah. And when you're, I don't know, you can like when you're in a body that's maybe not like traditionally the most accepted body. I don't know what you looked like when you were in high school.
I was a roly-poly little boy.
Yeah, same. Yep. But
you
I
weren't
mean, not a little boy, but you know, close. But I think that it can be really hard to try to find your place.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Right. And was sports, did that feel kind of like, well, we can pretend it's muscle?
Yeah, I mean, I always liked sports growing up too. Like I just was a sports kid. And football was the only place I was ever accepted because of my size, because it was an actual advantage.
Right.
And it also gave me the opportunity as like a kid who was beat up a lot and, you know, had a lot of like deep-seated rage issues, but because of my dad's rage issues that he couldn't control because he had PTSD before we knew what PTSD was, because he's 91. I never wanted anyone to ever see that angry, rageful act outside of it. So I would just take it, even though I was stronger than everybody. And like, you know, the fights would get to a certain point and then I would end the fight, but then I would be the one who got in trouble because I was the one who was seen.
Yeah. So we were just having this conversation today
with Olivia's 6-year-old.
Yeah, because I mean, my kids are both I would say tall and broad and husky, and they're often seen as the instigator because of their size. Yeah. And it drives me crazy.
And because other kids talk to them about their bodies.
Right.
Exactly.
And then it's like,
we can get into the whole societal school policing thing in a minute, because that's one of the things with Hot Fat Guy Club that I've been spending the majority of my time diving into, because I want to walk the walk in addition to the talking the talk of like really knowing what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because it's also important to me, the distinction of like, I'm not a guru, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I don't have any degrees in this. I figured some things out that worked for me and I'm still here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the actual achievement, is that I'm still here.
I mean, I think it's amazing we're talking about it. We both grew up chubby, quote unquote, right? Or like I was bullied a lot for my weight and struggled with disordered eating and eating disorders my whole life, binge eating. And so I very much relate. And I think one of the big issues, I mean, we all grew up during the same, you're our brother's age and we're just a little older than you, but you know, we didn't talk about it. Right. Like we didn't talk about the disordered eating and the anorexia and the bulimia and the shit. And now
you guys hide in the bathroom and eat. Did you like hide? I used to hide food in the bathroom.
Yeah, I would hide food a lot.
I used to hide from my ex-fiance and eat more recently.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, we used to sneak food, and you know, I would restrict. In high school,
steal candy and hide it and bring it to our room at night and eat it secretly, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so much. I mean, Olivia and I, one of our favorite things to do is talk about all the really insane things we ate during college. When I put on 50 pounds my freshman year.
Yeah.
It's
So why opera, Alex?
Didn't have to dance.
Mm.
And can you guess the other reason?
You're a soloist?
No. Well, no, because poverty. I mean,
because you thought you
bodies,
could,
bodies, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm gonna do for my own fun project with Hot Fat Guy Club is Hot Fat Guys of History, but it's just gonna be opera singers.
I love that.
Yeah,
because it's only opera singers.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of people, but like, it also gives me the opportunity to yell at people on the internet about their bad takes on singing. Because oh god, the death of expertise is so tragic. But so the it was one of those things where when I first got the opportunity to be exposed to it, and this is one of the other fundamental issues with opera in 2023. If you look at ballet, you compare the two, right? The average age of a ballet audience, and this is with absolutely no mathematical research whatsoever, but just looking at the theater, it's 20 years younger at least.
Right.
There are so many fewer white heads in that theater because if you start dancing, if you start doing ballet, you probably start doing it anywhere from like 2 to 5 years old.
Yeah.
And it's something that is like a core part of you either from a trauma perspective, or you are one of the lucky few who manages to get out of it with your sanity, and you still love it. But for whatever reason, you still want that connection to it. And there's a lot of people that make the very wise decision to go in the other direction and go get a real job and then find that connection back to it, kind of thing.
Right.
And with opera, that doesn't happen until much, much later in your life, because unless you're in like a boy choir or something, or you're in a children's choir, you're not going to have the opportunity to be in one or really be exposed to it unless you're Italian or German, or you live in Europe, right? Especially in this country, unless you're someone in your family's into it, you're not going to get exposed. And that was kind of the thing for me. I like went to one opera growing up, and I was just like, fuck this. This is stupid. I'm pretty sure it was actually a Wagner opera, which bad on everyone who thought it was a good idea to take me to a
little Alex Frankel.
Seems to be a theme in your life here.
Oh my God. It's so like, even at 31, opera is my favorite thing in the world. When it's done well, it's the most it's even better than an earth-shattering orgasm. It's the most fucking incredible thing in the world. And when it's done poorly, it's the worst. There's nothing worse than bad opera. And so
you need a podcast just about it.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
It's on the list.
Yeah.
So when I was a senior in high school, I was auditioning for all the musical theater conservatories. And, you know, the whole process of applying to college sucks as is, but applying to college and having to audition for every single one individually is an even, you know, and like I had a really major suicidal depressive episode my whole senior year. So that whole thing was just awful. And
what support did you have during that time?
Zero, nothing. Actually at one point my teachers ended up having to have an intervention with me, because they were, one, worried I was going to kill myself, and two, they were like, why are you failing every single one of your classes? You've completely checked out. What's wrong? And I looked them all dead in the eye, and I was like, I just have to get out of here. It's being here is the problem.
Yeah.
So
did you go to a public school, private school?
Public school.
Was it big, small?
1,400 people.
Okay.
Pretty
I'm just
small.
always curious. Yeah.
And I was very lucky that it was a public school with a really well-funded arts program. And so my senior year, one of the vocal coaches in our choral program came up to me and was like, hey, do you want $100 to be in the chorus of Don Giovanni with this opera company I work with in San Francisco? And I was like, I was 17. I was like, you had me at $100. And then I went, and I was in the process of doing all these college auditions. And the guy who was singing the lead in the opera was just at the time was the most incredible performer I'd ever seen in my entire life, and the most ridiculous singer I'd ever been around. It was unbelievable. And he was 31 at the time, and I ended up studying with him and taking voice lessons with him, and ended up having this unbelievable, like, super close relationship with him that ended up getting weird down the end.
They all do.
They all do.
No.
Voice teacher relationships are really bad to begin with. This wasn't necessarily bad. It's just that, like, never mind. I have to stop talking.
They all get
things get weird. Things get weird. That's all. Yeah, but like it also worked out perfectly, because I was doing all these musical theater auditions, and he had won a Tony Award for being in La Boheme on Broadway in 2003 with Baz Luhrmann. If you've seen Moulin Rouge, it's La Boheme on Broadway with shittier music. So I was like, yep, that's it. This is it. And then I took a lesson with him, and I sang one of the pieces I was working on for my musical theater repertoire that was a Kurt Weill song. So it was like an operetta. And he heard me and was like, you should learn this and come back to me in a week. Don't worry about the Italian, and then let's see it. And my lessons were at the San Francisco Opera House, in the big rehearsal room most of the time, or in the office of the woman who runs the Marilla, I think maybe formerly ran the Marilla and Adler program there, which are like big young artist programs. So she heard me sing when I first started singing at 17. And was like, oh shit, that's a voice. I also didn't have to dance in musical theater, and I had like a soloist. I have a cannon of a throat. So it just was like, yep, this is it. This is the thing. I love this. This art form is everything. It's bombastic. It's loud. There's not a fucking subtle thing about it. It matches. You know, it also was the thing that I thought would be accepting of me being fat And you know, this, it was like, the stage is so big, it doesn't matter. What matters is the singing. What matters is the sound.
Right.
Unfortunately, that is not actually what matters.
That's
what matters is the aesthetic of what people look like on stage, and whether or not you can take your shirt off on stage, and whether or not your white Republican donors like what you look like.
Interesting.
So.
That tracks. Where did you, so you auditioned for schools. Where did you end up going?
I ended up going to Manhattan School of Music.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is
so you were in the city.
I was in the city, which was great. Manhattan School of Music is a sham institution. Unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah, I had some friends that had experiences there.
Yeah. I mean, the unfortunate fact of the matter is the way specifically classical singing is taught now is just not, it's not worth your time or money. And especially with the state of the world, just like go get a fucking business degree or a finance degree and then study voice on the side and go get rich and fund your own projects. But because unless, like, quite frankly, unless you have rich parents or a benefactor, you can't survive in the industry.
Nope.
No,
it's crazy.
So what happened?
The recession is hitting, and you're moving to New York City at the same time, right? So what was that like coming to New York in 2009?
No, actually, I took 2 years off of school because of that. And I ended up singing professionally the entire time. So from 2009 to when I moved to New York in 2011, I was going to school at the same time, but I was studying languages and like music theory and acting. So I was going to school and taking Russian, German, French, and Italian, and studying voice and performing. I was in 30 full productions between 2009 and 2011.
It seems like a lot.
Yeah, and then I came to New York burnt out. But then when I got to Manhattan School of Music, like I'm a perfectionist very much to my own detriment, and you know, I thought that there should be like a certain level of things, and I showed up at MSM and it was like fucking kids play. It was so easy. And I was like, no, where's the challenge? What's fucking hard about this? And then I figured out how to kind of force my way into like grad level stuff. But unfortunately made quite a bit of enemies on the way because I didn't understand the politics game at the time. I was just like, this is what I'm doing and this is what I want. And at 20, nobody likes that guy at 20. So
it's tough. Being 20, you know, and you don't know what to do. You don't know who you are. Like you don't know how to be.
No. So how did you start, you know, to untangle kind of the trauma of everything that you had been through in your 20s?
It didn't all really start to come together probably until like 2019, when I started doing psychedelics more seriously. Because I was always able to, not always, but at a certain point between 2016 and 2019, I had kind of rationalized everything and figured everything out and was really good, and still am really good at intellectualizing my emotions.
You're a very smart person.
Yeah, as I appreciate that, thank you. As opposed to feeling them. And the great thing about psychedelics is that, you know, if you do the work of knowing yourself and you're able to separate like your ego from the roles that you think you need to play in your life and the stories that you tell and others tell yourself about you, and you are able to actually sit with the truth of yourself in that moment, it can be like a decade of therapy in an afternoon.
We were just talking about this.
We were having this conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's a really interesting way of pushing through those boundaries. And like the first time I did LSD, and you know, the core thing. So the core thing for me, and I think for everyone, it comes down to inner child issues.
100%.
Because again, we're all fucked up, and the quicker we all acknowledge that we're all fucked up, the better it will be for everybody. Everyone's parents fucked them up, school fucked everyone up. It doesn't we all had the exact same experience, even though it was completely different. At the end of the day, we had the same experience. Some people's might have been infinitely more traumatic than others. Other people's might have been infinitely better. There's always those people that peaked in high school, but like everyone's got their shit. No one's perfect. Emily Ratajkowski has her shit. John Hamm has her shit. Lenny Kravitz has his shit. Will Smith has his shit.
Oh yeah. Oprah.
Everybody's got
Everybody
their shit.
has their
Oprah.
stuff. Yeah.
You know, more money, more problems. Like holy shit. So The first moment was that photo shoot in 2015 where I was like first able to see myself. And then I went through a breakup and lost a shit ton of weight and went through a Don Giovanni gotta have sex with everything that moves phase. Because it was the first time I was ever conventionally hot. And you combine how much better you have to be at everything as a fat person in the dating world.
You're dangerous at that point.
Yup. And speaking of psychedelics, I lived in the Hamptons in the summer of 2021. And not wow.
It was
horrible.
I mean, we know.
Will Robinson.
We know. We grew up with those people.
Bury the Hamptons in fire.
Yeah.
Absolute at like the peak of summer season. Oh my God.
We've been there. Yeah. We know.
One of my old clients complained to me that we are not paying $275,000 for 1 month of rent. I literally said, nope, that's a decade of my rent. Absolutely fucking not.
Insane.
Nope. Also, is your husband hiring? And then ghosted me. Yeah. Lost the weight.
Charming and gorgeous and conventionally attractive for the first time.
And everyone treats me differently.
Yeah.
Right. But the meat sack is different. The person is the same.
Yeah.
And we're going to quote you on that. That's the quote we're going to put on social media.
Quote.
Yeah.
The meat sack is different, but the person is the same. And that was the most mind-boggling thing of all of a sudden, I'm smarter. I'm richer. I'm, I have more social currency. I'm more talented. I'm more insert adjective here. I'm more everything.
Right.
And I was doing psychedelics in the stupid Hamptons in the summer of 2021 with a former colleague of mine who's like glass of milk hot, like just enough, you know what I mean? To just cut through life like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah. Just enough.
Yeah. And we were having this conversation. Like he is having a fight with someone else that he wants to have, using me as the conduit for the other person. Right.
Okay.
And they're talking about like white privilege and pretty privilege and all of this just right over his head. And then it turned into like a weight thing. And I'm not going to hold my tongue as much as I don't want to have this conversation with this head. Like I'm also not going to hold my tongue in this situation. Right. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, the weight thing is I don't even remember what I said, but he was like, yeah, but I mean, isn't it a choice? Like you could do something about it. And I'm like, no, it's fucking not. And then I diverted the question away and changed the subject.
Yeah.
Because there's a million different things about it. So fast forward a week. My partner and I are polyamorous. We're in an open relationship. We had just opened the relationship at this time. And I went out on my first date outside of my partner. And again, when you're a fat person in the dating world, you have to do everything better. You have to have a plan. You've got to have great plans, great date ideas. You have to be more charming, more funny, more energetic.
So tiring.
It's so fucking tiring that you have to be that much better than everybody. It's exhausting. And especially since the standard is so low for generic meathead number one. It's very like my childhood best friend growing up is a firefighter, and I always used to tell him he's terrible with women. And I always used to say, if I were you, I would be dead of a petri dish of every STD that existed in the world. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Right. Never had to work for it.
Right. So I go on this date with this woman who like very, very, very pretty, couldn't actually tell from her profile at all. And like, I'm a very public person.
Right.
You can literally look me up and see all of my measurements and know exactly what size I am. Right. Right. And like, there are many pictures of me like just barely not naked all over the internet.
Yeah.
And many of me actually naked all over the internet.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm not hiding anything, right? I'm not catfishing anybody. I show up to this fucking date. I've got a charcuterie board, and I've got 2 glasses of wine, and I've rolled 3 perfect joints. I roll perfect joints.
Of course you do.
It's one thing I'm not even gonna ever pretend to be humble about. My joints are fucking perfect.
I don't think you should pretend to be humble about anything. How could you?
Everybody should be. Even Jeff Bezos' shit stinks, and his shit really stinks. sorry, ADHD brain. I lost my track of thought.
No, you got the date.
No, so she shows up. You got the charcuterie board.
Right.
We're meeting up at this very specific beach in the stupid Hamptons, to do like a sunset thing on the beach, and you know, all this shit. And I show up, and she like looks me up and down. We give each other a hug, and we're talking, and we walk like 100 feet onto the beach. And she was like, "So what are you looking for?" And like, at this point, like, it's my first date outside of my partner. Like, really all I want is to be slutty and you
have
know,
fun.
like, exactly, like I only want something physical,
and you're young, right?
Right. And I'm always very honest about my intentions, and like I always want to know where everybody's coming from. And she was like, yeah, you know, to be honest with you, I'm just like really in a physical place right now, and you're not as tall as I thought you were, and you're fat, so I'm gonna go home.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. And there's only one response that you're allowed to have as a man, and that honestly you should have in that moment as a man, which is okay.
Right.
That's it. That's the only acceptable response to that.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And you move on with your life. As much as it hurts and as much as it sucks, okay, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I got in the car, and of course it's the Hamptons, so there's no fucking cell reception anywhere. And I call my partner 50 times to tell them the story. And finally I get her on the phone, and I tell her the whole story. And like, again, like this is something that would only happen in the Hamptons.
Yeah.
Right? Only there would it ever happen. And I am fucking furious, because this like touches on the core fear of you're too fat to play with us.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
She wasn't saying it as like a declaration of size, right? Like, I think the thing is, like, we can use the word fat, like, people, you know, there's a whole like reclaiming the word fat thing, but like, she wasn't saying it as like just a fact. It feels more like she was saying it as like you were dishonest about something, right? And it was a takedown. It was meant to be judgment, mean. And that's the thing that's fucked up about it, right? Like, right. You could just say, listen, I'm not really feeling an attraction. And that's the same thing. But she needed to tell you that you're fat in that moment. And that was like, not like reclaiming it and, you know, naming a company after it.
So so you're in the car and you're trying to get in touch with your partner.
I'm in the car. I finally get Kelly. I tell her the whole story. And mind you, I don't drink. I hate drinking. I'm such a little child about the taste of alcohol, and I'm such a lightweight.
You'd rather eat like me.
Well, I'd rather eat.
I'd rather eat.
Both. Yes, and
why not? M&M's and the Cheetos.
Yeah. And so I come home to the house that I'm living in with my colleagues and, you know, meathead colleague. And we had just had this conversation a week ago, and I get home. Mind you, it was my night to cook dinner for the house. So I made a spectacular, it was steak night too. I made a spectacular steak dinner for everyone in the fucking house. Come home while they're all eating dinner, and I just go like sit in the backyard staring out into the woods, and I chug an entire bottle of white wine. And God. I will give credit to my colleague. Because also the whole time I was driving home, and Kelly, who was sitting hidden behind me, can attest to this. The number one thing I was like, I'm going to say his name is Todd. And I was like, I cannot start a fight with Todd over this. And Kelly can attest that is true, because it was perfect. And I'm sitting there, and everyone's having dinner, and like I told everybody what happened because I was, you know, livid.
Right.
And they come over after dinner to kind of, you know, pat me on the back and say I'm sorry. And that was kind of the moment where I, you know, and he ended up bringing it back to that conversation. I was like, this is what I was telling you the other day. Like, in every single situation, no matter what, every room we walk into, any bar we go to, any audition, any interview, any social interaction, automatically people just subconsciously are going to assume that you are more intelligent, more talented, more wealthy, more insert adjective here than I am, purely because of the way that we look. Yep. And that's not true at all. And it's that was one of the really wild things about that whole process of the weight loss and the weight gain, and, you know, meat sack being different but the person being the same, was like wait, hold on a second. Because then the other thing is, like, I gained all that weight back during COVID, and that's something that I have been struggling with a lot. And less so now because it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm doing what I can. I exercise regularly. I eat okay. I could probably do better about that, but it's the end of the world anyway.
Yeah.
So
enjoy yourself.
Exactly. So like it comes down to, for me, how much time am I going to spend just like torturing myself over everything?
Yeah.
And what's so funny is like there's a couple of the TikToks that I've made that have gotten really big about dating or whatever, and all these men are like, the one I talked about fat guys being hot guys, and that like the spectrum of what people find hot absolutely varies.
Yeah.
And everyone's attracted to something, and there is something about you that is attractive, even if you don't think that there is. And there's definitely more than one something. And for men specifically, if you think about how male body image issues can be how male body issues play into toxic masculinity within a patriarchal culture, and also how those body image issues can push people towards a lot of like incel and red pill culture, and that whole like horrible misogynistic ideology of like, oh, women were horrible to me, this one woman was horrible to me, so all women are horrible.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I was going to say one of the things I loved about watching your TikToks in particular, and then I want to talk about how you signed with Wilhelmina, because I think that that's an amazing journey. But one of the things I really loved about watching you is, obviously all the body stuff and the empowerment, and I've loved TikTok because it's shown me people that look like me, right, in a totally different way. But you are such a feminist, right? And you are really, one of your platforms is teaching men how to treat women, especially men of our age, right, even younger age, which a lot of our generation really don't know how to date. They don't know how to interact. They don't know how to socialize. No. And you've taken this platform and you're like, okay, I am going to teach you how to be like a human in the world. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's an important thing. I mean, as a gift and one of the greatest gifts and curses of my mind, as I see it, is that I, from a very, very young age, have been able to at least perceive what I see as the truth of the world in a lot of ways, of just like, okay, I understand how this structure works. I understand how this structure works. I understand how this structure works. And in certain ways, in certain places, it's a lot more difficult. And in other places, it's a lot more difficult. And a big part of that is both like a great cynicism about the world, and just like a large pessimism of how everything is going to be. But like for the last 3 years especially, we've seen a huge walk back of all the body positivity progress that was made in the fashion industry, and then the acceleration of everything fascism in this country and how all of these things directly play into that. And you've got the fucking poster child of toxic masculinity and inner child, or inner wounded child, in the orange man who was formerly president, and all the people that blindly follow him because it gives their the one of my favorite writers is a psychologist named Dr. Ronald Levant. He wrote a book called The Tough Standard, which is about the standards of masculinity, the correlations of the standards of masculinity and violence in men. And he developed the Toxic Masculinity Index, that is so the 7 pillars of toxic masculinity as he sees it. Number 1 is the resistance and restriction of expression of vulnerable and caring emotions. Number 2 is the avoidance of all things feminine. Number 3 is self-reliance. 4, toughness. 5, dominance. 6, an extremely high like Playboy norm sex drive. And 7 is disdain or hatred for gender or sexual or ethnic minorities. Right. So think about those 7 things and how that plays into everything we've seen happen over the last
100%. Like the thing I think about a lot is how I don't understand how everybody doesn't see that feminism is liberation for all of us. Right. And how it's like, we don't want, it's not that everybody should be like hate men or anything like that, obviously. But it's like, don't you see that it doesn't serve you? It gives you heart attacks when you're not having emotions.
Right.
It's awful.
Exactly. And it also doesn't matter if you're the most man-hating lesbian feminist in the world, or if you're Cletus from Cornhole, Kansas. every single person in the world has a man in their life that they want to love.
Yes.
Every single fucking person in the world does.
Yeah.
And men in general make it difficult for them to be loved. Bell Hooks, everyone should read The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. And she says, I think either the first chapter or the prologue, that, you know, every single one of us has a man in our lives that we want to love or be loved by. And she talks about her relationship with her father, and that how she could only love her father and feel safe within that relationship when he was fucking dead, because of the amount of pain and fear that he caused on a regular basis to them. And it's a self-perpetuating cycle. So again, we come back to that everybody's fucked up, right? John Bradshaw, he wrote Healing the Shame That Binds You. Great fucking book. He has a series of lectures on YouTube that he did on PBS called The Wounded Child. And one of them, he talks about like the school age child, and he calls the first leaving of home and going to school.
Yeah.
And he quotes this thing called like the big body, little body syndrome of, this is my like latest fascination, because I just stumbled on this the other day, of when between 0 and 3 years old. And actually I'm going to tie this in with a Ronald Levant thing. Do you know what alexithymia means?
No.
Alexithymia is hold on, I have a whole thing on here, and it's like right in front of me. Let me read the actual definition. Hold on.
I'm really enjoying this.
Yes, we could talk about this forever.
Okay. Alexithymia is a deficit in the ability to identify and describe emotions in oneself and others. So normative male alexithymia refers to the idea that it is normal or common for men to have a difficulty with emotions. And research has shown that normative male alexithymia is associated with various negative outcomes, including like bad relationships, poor communication skills, violence, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So between 0 and 3, our public persona and our private persona are the same thing. Because we're at home, we're safe.
Right.
From 3 on, our public persona grows larger than our private persona. And the person that we have to play when we're in public, and like at some point, I'm leaving out a huge detail in this, so take this with a grain of salt, but like at some point there's something that happens to you, right? And that wounded inner child, like we all develop at different rates, and you know, whatever's happening within the society structure, and this happens with gender a lot too. Ronald Levant talks about, there's a lot of studies of neonates, babies that have just been born. Who do you think rates higher, or I guess who is more emotive at birth? Assigned male at birth children or assigned female at birth children?
Assigned male at birth children.
Assigned male at birth children. Yeah. And then where does that completely switch 180 degrees, where all of a sudden assigned female at birth children skyrocket off the fucking charts and boys crater?
Is it nursery school?
Yes.
I taught nursery school. I'm very well aware of that.
And I taught in preschools as soon as because their peers are completely unaware of the gender policing that they're doing, right? Yeah. And it's coming from the other kids that are in class. It's coming from their teachers. It's coming from everywhere, right? Yeah. And so then you take that, you know, everybody's developmental differences in school and all that. So like I was shit in school. I couldn't focus on anything. My intelligence manifested in other ways. I failed algebra 17 times. Like I was great at English and history and all that other shit. I couldn't do math or science to save my fucking life.
Me too.
And
it's the ADHD.
Yeah, exactly. I had to be doing things. Yeah. That was how I was able to focus.
You probably had to also find it compelling and interesting.
I have a question. I need to interject here. I have a question.
Yeah.
Alex, because you are clearly, and Jenny's going to agree with me, one of the most intelligent people that we've ever talked to.
Yeah.
And no, really. Yeah.
Seriously.
I'm so stoned too, so that's great.
That's great. Yeah. No, you really, I mean,
autodidact.
But you were clearly like this your entire life. You were born this way. You were born a very intelligent person. So not only I'm going to say, I'm saying this as I have a son who is incredibly brilliant in the same way that you are. His brain works that way. It is scary sometimes. I will use that terminology.
So because when you ask him how he knows things, he just giggles.
Right.
That's
and
the
then,
scary
yeah.
part.
So not only were you different, I'm going to use quote unquote, because your body maybe was different, but you were clearly a very intelligent child. What was that like being 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, knowing that you saw the world completely differently and processed things at obviously a very different rate than the other students around you?
I was so sad all the time.
Yeah.
So I was so like, and that like this plays into another thing that's just like a current pressing issue in my life right now. So my brother, who was Woody's cannabis lawyer,
David.
yeah, he was like a more influential figure in my life growing up than even my father was in a lot of ways. And David, part of the reason I'm as much of like a feminist liberal commie that I am now is because of the influence that David had on me when I was a little kid. And unfortunately they have done a full 180 and have gone completely down the opposite rabbit hole, and we don't speak anymore.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. It's extremely painful, to be totally honest, because it's like it's a core.
It's a death.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and like I'm dealing with drama involving that now because my dad wants us to have a reconciliation.
Yeah,
and
never
anyway,
easy. Families
never
are
easy.
hard.
Families are hard, and David, like I remember in middle school in particular, it was when George Bush got elected, and I remember like I that was kind of like the first moment where I'm like, wait, this is fucking stupid. What is happening here? And I would go to Virginia every summer to spend, because I grew up as technically an only in the house as an only child. And my mother's the oldest of 5. So also growing up in the house as an only child was also another way of like getting, my dad being 91, like I watched Blazing Saddles when I was 6 years old and got suspended from school the next day for saying lines that I heard from the movie. The next week, my dad would let me watch History of the World Part 1, and I got suspended from school for "It's Good to Be the Kinging My Teacher." And those of you that understand that reference understand how bad that is.
But it got you here. It got you here today. Yeah.
So,
so David was there.
Yeah, so I struggle a lot with existential dread, a lot. It's really hard for me to like not see the writing on the wall for the world, to be like, yeah, we're all going to be dead in 10 years. And so that's like the finding something to like it, honestly, the kind of the definitive emotion of my entire life is hopelessness. So that's kind of where Hot Fat Guy Club came out of, because it became very clear that men are the problem because we don't see trans people or women shooting up schools, amongst other things. And like again, seeing the writing on the wall for what is happening in the world and in this country right now, and the fact that the majority of role models for men in the world are either Nazis or just trying to fucking sell you something and are also Nazis. Women are incredible and should be running the world, and you guys succeed in everything that you do except for one thing, and that's fixing men. And unfortunately you failed at it for centuries, and you're going to continue to fail at it because you're not the solution.
Right.
We are.
Right. But how fucking hopeful is that though? Right.
Yeah. Right. Well, again, the second thing would be contradiction. So hopelessness and contradiction.
Well, I do find that those who are like hopeless, or those who are cynical, truly cynical, are always looking for the joy. I mean, I was just talking, my fiance is a lot like you. You remind me a lot of him. And he is like very cynical in a similar way, and he just was quoting Leonard Cohen to me, like, there's a crack in all things, that's how the light gets in. And it's true, and I feel like he's also always striving and finding the hope in the world, and trying to like find the good and connect with the good. And I think that that's what you have to do. And I think that probably Olivia and I come from a similar place of like, we never wanted anyone to feel lonely, so we found this company so nobody ever feels lonely. And that probably comes from a place of feeling alone. I mean, I know, we felt very alone a lot of the time, and we don't want anyone to feel like that.
Exactly.
talk to us about the Hot Fat Guy Club, and is there going to be a dating component? Because I'm single, so I'm just saying, I'm looking.
You're not the first person that's asked that question. I don't know if you guys know Nikki and Alex with the Swipe Fat podcast, but like that was the first thing. They're like, when are you building a dating app?
Yeah,
just a directory.
So I mean, hey,
so what are you doing over there, and how did that come to be?
It started as a joke. I just like threw it up in my bio on TikTok after that whole thing. After I like initially blew up, and it started off as a joke, and then I was like, oh, I'll start a podcast about this. I got into a petty children's fight with now a former best friend over all this, and when I first came up with the idea, I like texted them and said, hey, I came up with this idea, the Hot Fat Guy Club. This person is 6'5", not skinny but not fat, but queer, and definitely like has their own body issues, and is one of the most stylish people I know, and is a big reason I am also who I am now today. So that is doubly shitty that this happened. But I texted them, was like, hey, I want you to be the first person I interview for this podcast, and they were like, there's a lot of other people in line ahead of you for this. And that was like the beginning of the end for that friendship. So Hot Fat Guy Club also was kind of born out of spite.
Yeah, well, all good businesses are. Why do you think I started Fresh Starts?
Hey, exactly. So it started as a joke.
Wait, what does that even mean though? There's a lot of other people online. I would like to
interview him, right?
There's more people that would get to interview them first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Oh, seriously, fuck that.
You don't have an in already? Come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, fuck that and fuck you. Like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was so pissed.
Yeah.
And
that's not a friend.
No. Yeah, exactly. So that started because that was one thing. My business partner Alan and I are a member of a psychedelic journey community together, and we met at a meditation potluck that they do on Thursday nights, and we happened to sit next to each other, and afterward we just during like the meditation portion, and afterward we're all like talking during the integration, and then we just like turned to each other, and then we talked for 2 hours, and then we ended up becoming really good friends. And we both do a lot of psychedelics, both recreationally and intentionally. And since we're in the space and we live a couple blocks from each other, we talk to each other about that stuff and integrate it a lot. And we're super duper close. He's one of my best friends. And we were integrating a series of journeys that they had because they had randomly reached out. We hadn't talked in a couple months, and he texted me and was like, hey, can we integrate this? And we started talking, and we're just checking in and all this. And I told him about Hot Fat Guy Club, and he was like, well, do you have an LLC? Do you have this? Do you have that? And I was like, I have a music degree. And then, like a week later, I have all of those things. I have lawyers, I have an accountant, I have all the stuff. And now we've got multiple investors, and we've got, all of our investors are also our founding team.
So what's the goal with the club? Like, it's obviously going to be a podcast, education, support.
Yeah, a number of different things. So it originally started as I've had in the back of my mind wanting to start a fashion brand for fat people for a long time.
Yes.
But I have a music degree, and
that's a limiting belief.
Well, yeah, exactly. But like how do I go about doing that? And I'm super specific about what I want, and I want it to be size inclusive up to 8XL, and I want it to be a high end brand.
Yeah.
So in terms of the infrastructure or the money to do that now, I don't have that. But what I do have is the ability to, one, in terms of the fashion standpoint, by building the mental health community aspect of what we're doing, I am also building a real life focus group of fat people that have the real life experience and also want to buy shit and look good. Because when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you can do anything, right?
Yep.
So it's really shitty when I try to buy something online and it says that the shirt's a 2X, and I put it on and it wears like spandex.
Yeah.
So I also want some like uniformity in sizing and things like that, because it also feels really shitty to try, Like, I don't know about you. Do you online shop? I fucking don't.
Yeah. No, not anymore because
Never.
it's tricky. Yeah.
Never. Because it's a double-edged sword of like, one, it's going to, kick me.
You
in the
have to
nuts.
order 3 sizes and everything is what I do.
Well, it's going to kick me in the nuts self-esteem wise. And 2, I'm going to forget that I ever bought it and then have to eat that money and never wear it because I'm going to forget to fucking return
I'm
it.
ADHD.
That's the ADHD brain right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's super duper frustrating. So originally I was like, I just want to, the like brand partnership collaboration angle is definitely something I want to go down, both for like really silly kind of stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Like Gold Bond is a dream collaboration of mine. Don't just bond, Gold Bond.
I love
and
it.
Your golden hair would be perfect.
Exactly. Because that's a hot fat guy secret passed down to one fat guy from another for generations.
The tradition from the Shettles.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gold Bond, give me $50 million to make you a commercial in assless chaps.
I'd watch it.
It'll happen.
Right. It's gonna, and then other shit of just like, why is fashion so obsessed with the frail, emaciated body? And if they're actually artists, why do they not want to paint on a larger canvas?
Not for change.
It's also important because like there are rich fat people too. They want to look good.
Yeah.
And like I had to wear suits and shit for opera. I would have to get everything custom tailored.
So what is coming up for you?
Besides the not for James
besides
Versace.
all of it, besides all of this, what's coming up?
We're launching officially on April 15th. Our first event will probably be April 16th because I'm in a show. Because I'm performing again now.
Yay.
Congratulations.
So speaking of fresh starts, a couple weeks ago, I literally had the thought while I was brushing my teeth of like, oh, it's kind of nice not pretending like I have to pretend about my voice anymore. Like, maybe I'm ready to let go of this. And an hour later, I got a contract in my inbox.
Always that way.
Yeah. And it's for a company for Company XIV. They're like a burlesque meets ballet meets circus meets opera company.
Amazing.
In Bushwick. They have their own space. And we open at the end of the month and then we run till the end of August.
You know what I love about you, Alex, and what you're doing is you have the same mission that we do, which is you never want people to feel alone.
Yeah.
And it's so transparent in everything you do. And we talk a lot, we're in the founder space a lot in the startup world. You lead with your heart, and that heart-led leaders do not fail.
Thank you.
And it's so true because whatever you do, you're going to help people, and that's a win.
Immediate success.
Immediate. And you're going to do very well because of that.
Thank you. Well, that's kind of the core mission. Like our number one value is the masculinity and loneliness crisis among men.
Yes.
Because again, that's where the alt-right pipeline and the incel red culture bullshit is coming from, because we're all spending too much fucking time alone.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the thing that I say all the time about the difference between New York City and Los Angeles, right? New York City, you get stuck on the train for an hour when the train is turning, and instead of it being flat and you're like standing, it's like the floor is this way and you're comfortable for 45 minutes. It doesn't matter that there's a billionaire sitting next to you or a homeless person taking a nap. You're all the same in that moment.
Right.
Yep.
We are all experiencing the collective suck together. Whereas in Los Angeles, you're all experiencing the collective suck of sitting in traffic for 3 hours alone in your car by yourself, and everyone else is an adversary.
Yeah. Well, I have a question before we let you go. As a mother of 2 boys, what would you recommend? Because we have a lot of people that, listen to this who are parents. What can we do as mothers who are feminists and who are, raising the next generation of men? I talk about everything with my kids, and we talk about emotions and this. Is there anything specific you would recommend as a man on this side of it that parents can do, especially mothers?
Yes. Ask me that question again when I finish the previous point.
Okay.
Sorry. No, you're good, because that's a great question. It's a great question, but it all, I promise it all ties together.
Okay.
So what I was saying before about like the majority of male role models and like messaging in the world, all the like stoicism, men's mental health thing. And even, Eckhart Tolle and Brene Brown, all of it comes from a place of you're doing this by yourself.
Yeah. Isolation.
So it's all coming from a place of isolation. And the only way you can actually heal is within community. And again, like that's where the psychedelic space has been.
I was just having this conversation at 8:15 with my fiance before I got on this podcast. Like we were just talking about how capitalism, the main goal of capitalism is to isolate you so that you need to consume.
Exactly.
And yes.
Exactly. Well, if you want to go even deeper into that, this book is a little bit irrelevant in the relationship anarchy, non-monogamy space now, but the guy who wrote the book Sex at Dawn did a podcast episode with Moshe Kasher, who's my favorite, where this is a very broad distillation of this argument, but talking about women's value in society and how it changed from hunter-gatherer cultures where women were the primary they brought the majority of food and resources to the tribes, and it didn't necessarily matter. Property wasn't an issue because it was based in community, and it didn't matter whose children were whose because it was a community and everyone raised everyone together. And then agriculture came around and you needed people to work the fields, and all of a sudden property was important.
Right.
And that's the moment where everything started to shift. And again, huge overgeneralization of that argument,
broad strokes,
but very, very, very broad strokes. But it's so interesting seeing that cause effect. So what we're doing, and the thing that I wanted to take from psychedelic community to this healing journey, especially for men, is creating creating a space and a platform for positive male role models who actually exist, because that's the thing that I've always been going for in the modeling career. Is I had an opportunity to be the role model I never had growing up.
Right.
So we are creating a platform for male role models. And also we're trademarking hot, fat guy, gay, girl, and they club. So we're also going to have those places and give platforms to people who deserve it within those communities. Because it's important to have their stories told and to actually show that there are positive male role models. So as opposed to repressing the parts of yourself that you want to do and storm the Capitol as a result, then instead you can maybe be yourself. Yeah. So the community aspect is a hugely important thing. As far as your question with what to do as a mother, I just had this conversation with my mother today. Because now that I'm old and I have the context of her relationship with her mother, it makes our entire relationship and my entire childhood make sense.
Yeah.
So and this John Bradshaw thing, I think I'll send the link to you so
please.
You guys can share it. But I think there's a really, the sixth lecture in particular is really interesting, talking about inner child shit. And again, the quicker we all accept that everyone's parents fuck them up, and you're a parent, you're gonna fuck your kids up,
absolutely,
no matter what. There's nothing,
many times.
there is nothing you can do to avoid it.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think the key is being willing to admit your mistakes. And it's so hard when they're a kid because you can't have that actually close, you can't actually talk to them about everything. And when it's your kid, it's even harder. So I think it's making sure that you're actually creating the space, when they tell you something, that you're actually hearing it. And because you don't know how they're going to interpret something. They've been themselves and fully themselves since day one. That's the thing about kids. They're idiots because they don't know anything, because they've only been here for 4 fucking years. Right. But that person from the day they're born is fully that person already.
100%.
Fully that person. And I worked with preschoolers for years. I've watched these families, and I've especially extremely high wealth families. I've watched generational curses be put on them. And I think the biggest thing is to just be aware of your own bias that comes out of your mouth. And you don't know how they're going to interpret that. Right.
So true.
So it's just, I think it's a level of consciousness of what you're it is a think before you speak kind of thing. And kids are difficult. They're assholes, and they're gross, and they're idiots, and they're sweet and wonderful, brilliant, intelligent little gross dumbasses. And their brains are, tiny, but they're full-fledged people, and they don't have any context for why they feel what they feel. And that's the biggest thing. So I think giving them as many examples as you can of good context as to how to process emotions. And my dad definitely made a mistake showing me Mel Brooks at 6 years old without some context, but be selective about the cool shit that you show them that they're too young for. You know what I mean? Because like there's a lot like Moshe Kasher is my favorite comedian, and Pete Holmes. The two of them, I personally, I think Pete Holmes is one of the most important men in the world. Actually, I think that
he could be one of the role models, right? He could be one of the good role models.
100 million%.
Yeah,
I fucking love Pete Holmes.
We'll tag him in this.
Yeah, please do. And Moshe Kasher as well. I actually think the two of them are both, you know, because everyone wants to like, oh, comedians are the modern philosophers. Like, no, some are.
Not yet.
Like, some are. Not,
some are very intelligent.
All of them.
Yeah.
And Moshe Kasher and Pete Holmes are two of those people because I think both of them kind of came to a point in their life where it was like, okay, I go left and I stay on this path, or I go right and I take the new path where I can actually be myself. Right. And they talk very openly about that.
Which is interesting because they both come from like pretty like religious families, right?
Well, Moshe Kasher's father was a Hasidic Jew.
Right.
And both of his parents were deaf. So like another thing that I love about Moshe Kasher is our stories are similar. His is vastly more extreme than mine. Yeah. But he grew up in Oakland. I grew up just over the hills from Oakland. He has 2 deaf parents. I have 1 deaf parent. Wow. In and out of rehab and juvie all the time when he was a kid. I got arrested 1 million times when I was a kid. Wow. Horrible family life, addiction issues, all the things. So I've always really resonated with his story. Yeah. So I think like that is a great thing because you can give them the stuff that makes them cooler than everybody. So like the Jim Jeffries gun control bit, the any Moshe Kasher, especially in the last like 5 years, any Pete Holmes, anything, because you're like it's like having the opportunity to shape their musical taste, but you can kind of start to shape their ideological taste by also giving them like an edge up on being cooler than everyone.
What a great advice is that. I love that
because also that can kind of parse through some of the noise that's online from their peers as well.
Yeah.
And they're not going to learn any fucking ethnic slurs from Pete Holmes or
no, they're not. It's so clean
because
he's such a nice boy.
They punch up.
They punch up.
Right. I love that, Alex. So last question we always ask everybody, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah, but you have to come back. You have to promise to come back.
Oh no, we need to. I feel like we have other.
We do. We have
I just want to interrogate you about your favorite comedians, and I have a lot of like other questions.
I want to also talk about generational trauma because that's my hobby. My hobby is generational trauma.
I feel like I still want to go so much deeper into.
We can do a whole.
I'll have you guys on. We'll cross pollinate. I'll have you guys on one of the first episodes of our podcast.
We would love that.
So excited.
Anytime you want to come back here,
you have something to say, let us know.
Right.
So to finish off this episode of the Alex Frankel series, what is the last thing that you ate and truly loved?
Okay, so there's a bakery across the street from my apartment called Winner. And they have this fried chicken sandwich that is fucking perfect. That's one of them. The other is a chopped cheese sandwich with everything on it and pepper jack cheese with kimchi on it.
I love kimchi so much.
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing.
Good. Yeah, it's so good.
I want that now.
Alex, it is so amazing to talk to you. I'm going to hit stop recording and then we're not going to let you go though. And I'm just, I'm so excited to see what you do in this world and to see what your next steps are. You are so incredibly, obviously intelligent and passionate, but such a good person through and through. And, I always say to people, like, when you go through trauma and you go through hard shit, especially as a child, you could choose 2 paths, right? You could be the one that hurts other people, or you can be the one that helps other people. And you, like me, especially have a pathological need to change the world. And I can see that. And it comes from a real deep place of trauma.
We see you.
A real deep place of trauma. So I'm just thrilled that we connected and that, everything you're doing, and we're psyched and we're here to support you through it all. So thank you for being here.
Thank you
so much.
I mean, why do you think I'm growing the hair out again? I am the second coming.
I have no doubt. Thank you for listening to today's story. We're always here and we're proud of you. Until next time, brave one.
A Fresh Story is brought to you by Fresh Starts Registry, the first and only platform for everything you need to start again. You can read the show notes and learn more about today's episode at freshstartsregistry.com/podcast.
As always, we want to remind our listeners that while we strive to provide accurate and helpful information, we are not medical doctors or mental health professionals. We want to remind you all that the information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. We highly recommend consulting a qualified healthcare or mental health professional for any concerns or questions you may have. Remember, we are a podcast, but we are not licensed medical professionals. Always consult with your healthcare provider for any medical decisions. And as a gentle reminder, all opinions are our guests and do not necessarily reflect our own.